Next week I'm not going to be here. You know that. I'm going to be in the Holy
Only
Land.
next year? Only
Next
next week?
Next Monday night I'm going to be in Israel.
Only 1 week, right? 1 week.
Okay, we ready? Here we go. Parshas Vayechi. Let's begin a little bit. We talked about this over the years. It says Vayechi Yaakov Eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov lived in Mitzrayim 17 years. Now, how old was he when he came down to Mitzrayim? Last week we said he was 130. So if he lived 17 years, how old is he? 147. So the Torah says, and Yaakov was 147 years old. So I was once in the office of Mordechai Eliyahu, the chief rabbi of Israel, in his time, and I had a case that I had to deal with him, and he asked me, he says, why does the Torah have to tell me he's 147? Last week you told me he's 130. He's 17 years there. Simple math, a second grader can do that math. I don't need the Torah to tell me he's 147 years old. That was his question, a very decent question. He had a very wonderful answer. His answer was as follows. He says, a person comes up to heaven, up to Shemayim, after 120 years. And God will say to you, how old are you? So you'll say, I'm 95 years old. Hashem says, really? He checks his papers. He says, according to my papers, you're 12 years old. He says, what are you talking about? I'm 95 years old. What do you mean 12 years old? He says, well, let's look at that 95. Half that time you slept. Well, that makes you 40, And then half of that time you were eating, breakfast, lunch, supper, And then you were doing gym and baseball and basketball and exercise. And by the time you're through, the amount of time you spent in learning Torah and doing mitzvahs comes out to be 12 years old. So the Torah is telling us by Yaakov that Yaakov, when he came up to heaven, how old was he? 147. It means every day was used. Now, he explained, of course, he says if a person sleeps for the purpose of sleeping, you're right, nothing good comes from it. A person says, I'm going to go to sleep so tomorrow morning I can get up for davening, and I can be a minion, and I can get up to learn, so then you get the reward for the sleep. Shem Shamayim. A person sits down and eats. He says, I'm eating, so I should have the strength to study Torah and go to a shiur, so then you get the reward for the eating. It all depends on your attitude, how you approach life. Do you approach life as a Torah Jew, where everything you're doing is for the greater good of what Hashem wants, then you get reward for everything. If you approach life that, eat, drink, and be merry, tomorrow we die, let's do whatever we can for me, it's all about me, then you're not going to get the reward. It all depends on your attitude. Let's take it a step further. How old was David HaMelech when he died? 70 years old. David says, the average person's, the average person's life is 70 years. If you have extraordinary strength, it's 80 years. So David was 70 years. Where did he get those 70 years from? He was supposed to be born
from Adam Arishon.
Give that man a gold star from Adam Arishon. So there's a medrash. That's what the medrash says. The medrash says Avram was supposed to be lived to be 180. Avram died at 175. What happened to those extra 5 years? He says, give it to David. Yaakov was supposed to live to be 180. He lived 147. He was missing 28 years. What did he say to do with those years? Give it to David HaMelech. Yosef should have lived as long as his father, 147. He only lived 110. 37 years are missing. What did Yosef say? Give it to David HaMelech. 5 plus 28 plus 37 equals 70.
Oh, wow.
That's where David got the 70 years.
5 from
Adam only.
5 plus 28 is 33
from Yaakov.
From Yaakov, and
Yeah.
37 from Yosef.
Wait, Adam only gave him 5 years?
No.
I thought he gave him 70 years.
Adam gave him 70. Abraham gave him 5. Yaakov gave him 28. Yosef gave him 37. So you're going to ask the question, what did he need another 70 years for? Adam gave him 70 years. Why did he need twice 70? So one answer, very interesting answer. He says, most people, they sleep at night. Yaakov didn't sleep at night. He was always learning Torah. So he needed 70 day years and 70 night years. He needed like 140 years, so he needed twice. Another answer is, very interesting answer.
You mean David HaMelech or you said Yaakov?
I mean David HaMelech, sorry, David. You're right, David. Because David was, he never used to sleep at night. Another answer is a very interesting answer. Adam saw David HaMelech had no life, no years. So he said, I'm going to give him 7. Now, when he's reaching 930 years, Hashem says to Adam, okay, it's time to go. Adam says, what about Chava? No, Chava's going to live to be 1,000. Oh, I want to live to be 1,000. He said, well, you gave 70 years to David. He said, I haven't changed my mind. I'm not ready to go. I want my years back. I want a refund, Hashem says, sorry, you signed the contract. There are no credits, no returns.
Last sale.
Last sale, final sale. All sales are final. So the Medrash seems to imply that since he regretted it, the 70 years, although he lost those 70 years, David didn't get him fully. He needed some extra help. And that's where Abraham stepped in, and Yaakov stepped in, and Yosef stepped in. But it's interesting, because, Adam gave those 70 years, but then he regretted it.
What about Yitzchak?
Yitzchak lived to be a full 180. He didn't have any extra years to give. See, of the 3 fathers, Yitzchak lived to be the full term, 180. Everybody else was short.
David didn't sleep, actually. He slept, David HaMelech, he used to sleep 30 seconds.
Yeah, very little doze off, It's an unusual medrash that says that. But it's
Rabbi
unusual.
Bryks, tell me, when did Yitzchak Avinu die? Did he die before Yosef disappeared?
No,
and before
after
they
Yosef
went to
disappeared. He lived, I think.
So before they went to Egypt,
Yeah.
all of them, he already passed away.
Correct, but he died before Yosef was sold.
He knew that Joseph
He knew
alive
that Joseph
when
was
he
alive
came.
and it was sold. He didn't tell anybody because they weren't allowed to tell, but he knew. Okay, a few other little tidbits over here. It says that Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Amos. The days of Yaakov's dying were coming near. It's unusual. A person doesn't die over many days. A person dies on one day. So the Gemara says that Yaakov davened that people should get sick. So they should know that, they're coming to the end of their life, so they should be able to have time to put their affairs in order. And we know this because it says, Vayikrevu Yemei, the days of Yaakov's dying. He got sick. And as he got ill, he realized my time is coming. Mm-hmm. So, when we say a person only dies on one day, that's true, but sometimes the illness is an indication that the end is coming near. It gives you a little bit of a heads up of what's happening. So he calls Yosef, and he says to Yosef, listen, when I die, I'm going to ask you a favor. Don't bury me in Egypt. Now, it's a big ask. It was a big favor. The only one that had any ability or power to fulfill it was Yosef. Nobody else could have accomplished that, we assume. The Egyptians were not going to let Yaakov go easily because Yaakov brought tremendous bracha. The famine ended, etc. So, they figured if Yaakov leaves, even when he's dead, he's going to have a bracha. They weren't interested in letting him go. Yaakov did not want to be buried in Egypt, Rashi says, because when this plague of lice came, the earth would turn into lice. He didn't want lice all over his body. Or he didn't want to roll. There's a medrash that says if you are buried in Chutz La'aretz, the body rolls into Israel. He didn't want to roll through the tunnels. And the third reason is he didn't want the Egyptians to worship him like a god. He didn't want the Egyptians to deify him and make him into a god. We got that.
Or mummify him.
Well, we'll talk about mummifying in a moment. It's interesting that his request to Yosef was, I don't want to be buried in Egypt even for a day. That means don't tell me we'll bury you temporarily in Egypt and we'll take you out. That's what Joseph did.
It was a lesson for Yosef himself. It was a lesson of what his father said.
Correct.
Because when he got there, he told someone, Mashiach comes and please take my bones and bring.
Right, when they get redeemed. We're going to go into that in a moment. But you're right. Yaakov didn't want even for a moment. He didn't want to spend one day in Egypt's ground. He didn't want to be buried for a day.
But Yosef did it? Or you
No.
No.
So Yosef went through the embalming process, as you call it, the mummifying. But the embalming process we don't follow that in halacha. You take organs out, you take the blood out. So the pasuk is very interesting. The pasuk says that Yosef commanded his personal servants the doctors to embalm. So the Medrash says, you know what it means, his personal servants? That means the normal Egyptian caretakers, Yosef said, they're not. You guys, I don't want to use you. I have my own people. He brought his own crew in to embalm, which they didn't embalm.
Yes, they didn't touch
All
it.
they did was just
Yes.
wrap the body. You know, they faked it out. You know, they made it look like embalming, but they didn't embalm. Yosef wasn't worried because, you know, even though it was going to take a good 6 months by the time they finished till they buried him in Israel, he wasn't worried that the body would decompose. Yaakov was a tzaddik, so he wasn't worried about anything, but he controlled it. He managed everything. That means he didn't use the normal Egyptian servants. He had his own crew, his own private crew. Now, the point that you brought out is an important point. The Oznaim Torah says this, and we've talked about this over the years. When Yaakov requested this of Yosef, Vayomer, Yosef answered to his father, Anochi esek kidvorecha, I will do what you said. And Yaakov is so impressed, he bows to the head of the bed, which is where the Shekhinah is. Rashi says that Yaakov said to himself, wow, now I see Yosef is a real tzaddik. Which the Oznaim Torah says is an unusual thing. You know, if a father says to his son, could you go to the store and buy a carton of milk? And your son says, sure, Dad, no problem. Your father's not going to stand up and say, whoa, now I see you're a real tzaddik. You know, I realize this is a bigger ask, but it's still an unusual response. So the Oznaim Torah, Zalman Saroskan, says what you alluded to. That when Yosef says, you know, to Yaakov, Vayomer, Anochi esek kidvorecha, what he was saying was, Anochi, when I die, esek kidvorecha, I'm going to do the same thing you're doing. Which Yaakov says, you know, but you lived your whole life in Egypt. Why would you want to leave? They're going to name schools after you. They're going to name streets after you, cities after you. Yosef was a hero. Why would you want to go be buried back in Israel? He left Israel when he was 17. That was almost 100 years ago. Who goes back to a country they left 100 years ago? But Yosef said to his father, Egypt is nothing. All the glory, everything, Egypt is nothing. I want to be back in Israel.
What
And that's
about
what
his rest of brothers? They, of course, they also get that.
So we know that the Medrash seems to imply that the brothers left the same instructions. Not everybody did. Most of the Jews who lived in Egypt for hundreds of years, they lived there. There were 210 years, were buried in Goshen, and they stayed in Goshen. Wherever those graves are today, nobody knows. But the brothers were buried in Israel. You know, we know where Yehuda, I think, is buried, where Dan is buried, Naphtali, the certain ones. Yosef, we know, is buried where? Which city is Yosef buried in? Shechem.
Oh, Shem.
I've been
Only
to his
Yosef
grave.
was buried in
No.
Israel?
No, all the brothers were. And in Shechem, you have, because that was the city he got as a gift for all his effort. Yosef is buried in Shechem, and at the head, there's a circular monument. At the foot, there's a circular monument, and that one is Ephraim and one is Menashe. So Yosef is buried in Shechem with Ephraim and Menashe.
Wow.
So a lot of them are buried there.
But Shem was in Ephraim's place?
Yes, Shechem is part of Ephraim's Nachalo. We have a marker in Israel for Tzipporah, for Bilhah and Zilpah. They have for Yocheved, Elisheva, Aaron's wife. There's a Kever Imahos. There's a grave of the mother, so-called, which, you know, we have there near Tveria, where it says, you know, this is where Tzipporah, I mean, I don't know if it's true, I mean, there are monuments and markers up that they were buried there. So a lot of people were carried out. It's just interesting that the only one who could bury Yaakov was Yosef. Yaakov gave him a gift, Shechem. Hashem gave him a gift. Hashem said to him, because you did what you did, when it comes time for you, I'm going to send my best guy to take care of you.
To Yosef.
To Yosef. Who was his best guy? Moshe. Moshe took care of him. They couldn't get the coffin, and lead, you know, weighted down with lead. He had it rise out of the Nile. And Moshe kept the coffin near his tent. You know, it wasn't in the Nachal of Ephraim or Menashe. Moshe had Yosef's
40
body
years.
40 years next to his tent.
Yeah.
When the Aron Kodesh would travel, Yosef traveled side by side, like it was a bizarre thing. He had the beautiful Aron Kodesh, and he had a coffin next door. Because Yosef's grave was right next to Moshe's tent, who used to go daven there all the time? Yehoshua. That's how Moshe and Yehoshua met and became friends. Because Yehoshua was from Shevet Ephraim. Yosef was a great-great-grandfather. So he went to the grave of his grandfather. Moshe was impressed. You know, a grandson who goes to his grandfather's grave is impressive. That's how they had their relationship.
So Rabbi Bryks said, how did the other brothers, like Yehuda, Benjamin,
They left instructions to their families.
to bury them in Israel?
That's right.
So when they died, they were buried in Israel?
Correct.
Throughout the 210 years?
And no, throughout the 210 years they were buried in Egypt, and when they left, they were
Also taken
Oh,
out
Israel.
with Yosef.
Right.
Then
Which
why
leads
does
us-
around he say that Joseph's grave was taken out? Why does it impress that only Joseph?
because Joseph was the one that the Torah mentions made the promise. But we know that the brothers made the same promise.
Okay.
Okay? Which leads us to the next issue. Is it a mitzvah to be buried in Israel?
No.
Okay, well, it depends who you ask. The Rambam writes in the Rambam, in Hilchos Malachim, HaKover Bo, a person who's buried in Israel, and is kaperlo. Your sins are forgiven because you're buried in the land. There's a pasuk that says, V'chiper ad mosa amo, the earth of Israel brings kapara, forgiveness for your sins. And the Rambam then says it's like you're buried next to the Mizbeach. And the body is preserved, it doesn't decompose as quickly. Then in the Chuvos, someone asked the Rambam, he says, my father and mother lived here outside of Israel and they died. And I have a friend of mine going to Israel and he said he would take my parents with him. I guess it was like in a suitcase or something. Should I send my parents in a suitcase to be buried in Israel? And the Rambam says 100%, good idea. I guess that was before the TSA people were checking suitcases. You come with a suitcase and there's a dead body inside and TSA checks it. Not a good idea, right?
What's the TSA?
The people who do the security checks at the airport.
Yeah, TSA they call it?
Right. Transportation Safety Administration. You know, if you have a nail clipper, they're going to take it away. Imagine if you come with a suitcase and there's a dead body inside. You're going to get arrested. So. But in those days, they didn't have that. So the Rambam, he's of the opinion that to get buried in Israel is a big thing. It's a big mitzvah. And a lot of people believe in that, and people do that. The one who disagrees is the Zohar HaKodesh. The Zohar writes that anybody who lived their life in Chutz La'aretz, when they die, should not be buried in Israel. Don't come and make Israel tamei with dead bodies.
Oh my goodness.
That's what he writes. He says, don't make our holy land tamei.
Such a strong
It's a very strong statement. Now, they question, well, look at Yaakov, you know, he was buried in Israel. Yosef, he says, well, Yaakov lived most of his life in Israel. He went down because he didn't have a choice. That was a decree from heaven, so you can't blame him. Yosef, he didn't want to leave Israel. He was sold into, Egypt. So, of course, he didn't go back, but you can't blame Yosef. He was born in Israel. So the Zohar says we're talking about people who never lived in Israel. Some opinions say that if you support someone living in Israel, then you have a right to be buried in Israel. So it's not so simple. The Rambam is of the opinion it's a big mitzvah. And we know people all the time when they die, they ask to be buried in Israel, and it's expensive, but they ask. But not everybody agrees that it's the right thing to do. There's a debate back and forth. In America, if someone is buried in America, what do? We take earth of Israel and we sprinkle it inside the coffin. So at least they may be not buried in Israel, but they have Israeli earth. I know that my father, years ago when he was in the 50s, he went to Israel, he brought back, I still have it, bags, like small little bags from Kever Rochel. They sold it there, Kever Rochel, from the old Kever Rochel, dirt from Israel.
We used to do it in back home also.
Yeah.
Sand from the Israel.
Sand from Israel, and you will spread it inside. So, as if to give a flavor of Israel when you bury. But a lot of people say it's a big mitzvah if you can afford it, if you can arrange it. Whether you go to Har HaZeitzim, Har Menuchos, Or you can go to Ramat. Beit Shemesh has a cemetery. There are a lot of cemeteries. But, the Zohar, he's really very, very strong. He says, no way. If you don't live your life in Israel, you can't go there. And as I mentioned to you, Yaakov didn't want to even be buried in Israel, in Egypt for one day. He didn't want any delays. He wanted on his way right away. It took a while, but that's what he wanted.
So which one we should follow now nowadays?
That's a very good question. You need to consult your local Orthodox rabbi, and figure out what's best for you.
What's your opinion?
Well, my wife has made it very clear that she wants to be buried in Israel. Last year, Rabbi Borochov took us around to Har Hazeisim and showed us some interesting areas. We're going to probably check them out again this year. We're looking. It does get expensive, and Israel is running out of space. What they're doing now is they're burying one on top of the other.
Yeah, 25,000, yes?
Yeah, 25, 30, 35,000, yeah.
So expensive.
Correct. It's it is, and today, I had 2 funerals today. I don't think they were buried in Israel. Then I got a phone call at the funeral from someone in Israel who I normally go visit when I go, and I'm going next week. He passed away today. He was sick for a while. They thought I was in Israel, maybe I would make it to the funeral, so they were trying to reach me. Of course, I won't be there. I'll be there. I'll be able to make a shiva call next week, but I won't be able to be there. Parshas Vayechi is called sosu, blocked or hidden. Between every parsha, there's a space of 9 letters. Rashis to Noach, they leave a space of 9 letters. At least. In Vayigash to Vayechi, there's a space of 1 letter. There's no space. The reason is, Yaakov wanted to reveal when Mashiach is coming. He noticed that when he looked at the names, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, there was no letter Ches or Tes, no Chet, no Sin. But there was also no letter Kuf and Tzadi. So there was no Kates, there was no Mashiach, no end. Maybe because of the Sinas Chinam with Yosef. So in the end, the Parsha is hidden, because as much as Yaakov wanted to reveal what was going to happen, in the end, he couldn't reveal what was going to happen. It was hidden away. It was denied. This is an interesting trivia, but it bothers us because now, when they made for the Kohen Gadol the breastplate, and they put the names of the Shvatim, they were missing 4 letters. There was no Chet, no Tet, no Tzadi, no Kuf. And the breastplate used to light up and give messages. Well, you can only give messages if you have all the letters of the alphabet. If you're missing letters of the alphabet, your machine is not going to work. So how do they compensate? What do they add? What names did they add to get those letters? So the first thing they added was Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So besides the 12 Shvatim, in between the stones, they didn't have stones for them, they wrote the names Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Well, Yitzchak, that was a perfect name. Has a tzadi, has a kuf, and a ches. So he got 3 of the 4 letters missing is in Yitzchak's name. The letter tes is missing. So how do they get that in? They wrote Shiftei Ka, the tribes of Israel. The word Shevet has the letter tet. So the Choshen had not only 12 stones with 12 names. It also had the names of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shiftei Ka. So, Shiftei Ka, Yud He, Hashem's name, the Shvatim of God.
Wow.
So this way they had all the letters. Okay? Like trying to play a game of bananagrams or Scrabble without all the letters. You can't make words without all the letters. You need all the letters. Then the Gemara has a question. How long is Shiva? Well, that's a simple question. The answer is, how many days is Shiva? 7. Shiva is 7. How do we know Shiva is 7?
What is Shiva?
When a person dies, you sit Shiva.
7 days.
Right? 7 days. How do we know it's 7 days? So one answer is, because it says by Yaakov, they mourned Yaakov 7 days.
7 days.
So that's a good proof. Of course, that was before Yaakov was buried, and we don't have Shiva until after a person's buried. But the Gemara gives a different answer. The Gemara says, there's a pasuk, that I'm going to change your festivals into mourning. And the average Chag is how many days? 7 days. Pesach, Sukkot. So therefore, if I'm going to make your Chagim Avelut, How long is Avelut? It's 7 days. It's a fascinating answer. Now, according to Halacha, it's interesting that the first day the Rambam says is from the Torah. Shiva is 7 days. Day 1 is from the Torah. The other 6 days is only midrabanan. People lose sight of that. They think Shiva is all of 7 days, but it's not. Shiva is not 7 days. Shiva is really, well, it is 7 days, but the first day is from the Torah, the 6 days is midrabanan. And it's important to know when you deal with laws of Shiva and Halacha what to do. Then comes the next question. These are questions the brothers debated, okay? If a person has more than one wife, who's the wife he's buried next to?
Say it again.
If a person has more than one wife, who do you bury him next to?
Or which wife?
Which wife? I mean, here's Yaakov. Yaakov has 4 wives. He had Rachel, he had Leah, he had Bilhah, he had Zilpah.
Who has more kids?
Leah. Leah
So
was the
what? We assume, wow, Yaakov, we're going to bury him in the Marat HaMachpelah. Who says? Maybe he should have been buried in Beit Lechem next to Rachel. Who do you bury? A person has more than one wife. Who do you bury? What does the halacha say? So the halacha seems to have many opinions. The halacha, one opinion is it's the wife you're married to the longest.
Yeah.
One opinion is the purpose of being buried is that the children should come visit, so it's the wife you have children with. So if a man is married and has 3 or 4 children, and his wife, let's say, dies, and then he gets remarried, has no children, who does he get buried to? The first wife. Other people say the first wife, whoever she is. Or some people say the marriage who he was the happiest with, which is hard for children to determine. But if you examine the facts, let's go over it. Which wife was he married to the longest between Rachel and Leah? Leah. Which wife had more children, Rachel or Leah? Leah. Who did he marry first, Rachel or Leah? Leah. So far, Leah is 3-0. Leah is the winner so far. Which marriage was the happiest? Hard to answer. Maybe we'll say Rachel, but so in the end, given the choice, right? Yaakov gets buried next to Leah. Leah was already buried in the Marat HaMachpelah.
When?
Yeah.
When she died.
Yeah.
She died when she was 44. She died very young. So Yaakov, Leah had been dead already for 50 years. So Yaakov left instructions, I guess, to be buried in the Marat HaMachpelah. That's where he wanted. Of course, Esav came in and says, hey, bury him next to Rachel. I'll be buried here, We know that there was a whole debate about that, and Esav lost that debate. It's an important thing when you get into a fight, don't lose your head, as they say. Esav lost his head over that debate. But it's just interesting that it's not so simple today. Especially, many people get remarried sometimes after a divorce, sometimes after a lot of things, and you have to leave instructions. It's a very uncomfortable conversation. Parents don't have these conversations with their children. Maybe they have to leave instructions behind. Very often, when a parent dies and dies suddenly, the children have no clue where he wants to be buried. My mother, we buried her in New York because the kids are here. My father's buried in Denver. We didn't take my mother back to Denver because none of us live in Denver. If anything, we would bring my father here before we would take my mother there. So, but we had conversations with my mother because my mother had gotten sick, so we were able to have certain conversations with her. It's important to know people have to tell you what they're, you can't read minds. And God forbid when a person passes away, everything is so crazy and so confusing and so emotional, it's very hard to make good decisions at that time. So parents, as we get older, have to learn how to leave a letter behind or instructions behind as to what's going on in their life to be able to instruct their children. There's a famous story, just a bizarre story. He says there was a particular town in Europe that most of the people there were not very knowledgeable of Torah. They were very ignorant. And when they wanted to hire a rabbi, no rabbi would take the job. No rabbi applied. So what did the town people do? In the cemetery, they put up a matzeva, a stone. It said on it, Chofetz Chaim, or Rabbi Akiva Eger, or the Taz. And when a rabbi was driving through the city, he said, whoa, this town had the Chofetz Chaim, this town had the Taz, This town had Rabbi Akiva Eiger. It must be a very important town. So he applied for the job, and they hired him, and he took the job. Of course, a day later, he learned that the Chofetz Chaim is buried in Radin, and the Taz is buried who knows where in Europe, and Rabbi Akiva Eiger is buried in Posen. So he came back to the president of the synagogue. He said, "You lied to me. You have all these tombstones up that these great rabbis died here. They never lived here. They were never in this town." He says, "Listen, in Posen, they studied the words of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. In Radin, they studied the Mishnah Berurah. The Chofetz Chaim still lives in Radin. Trust me, in this town, these guys are dead. Nobody studies them at all, you know. Nobody learns the Mishnah Berurah here. Trust me, these rabbis in this town are really, really dead, you know. Done and buried, you know. Forget about it. You're never going to get anything from us." I don't know if the rabbi stayed or not. It could be that the rabbi got smart and got out when he could. After Yaakov died, and after Yaakov was buried, and the brothers all came back to Egypt, they were scared. They were panicked. What were they afraid of?
Yosef.
They were afraid of Yosef. What were they afraid of with Yosef?
His
Revenge.
was
Revenge. Okay, let's get this straight. The brothers come back, and they go to Yosef, and they say, "We want you to know that our father told us before he died, you know, forgive us for whatever we did," whatever it is. Did Yaakov ever say that? Probably not. Did Yaakov even know what really happened? Nobody knows for sure. And of course, Yosef says, wait, what are you talking about? You say, "I'm God, I'm not God, you know, everything was for Hashem, you know, nothing to do with me." What are you talking about? But the Midrashim, the Pirushim, they all want to know, what was it that got the brothers so scared? What was it? So there's two answers that they give, very interesting answers. The first answer is that Yosef used to eat supper with them. You know, that's what I'm saying. We, as Jews, have family mealtime every Shabbat, right? On a normal Shabbat, you come home Friday night, Shabbat, it's family mealtime. There's no television playing, there's no cell phones at the table. The family sits together. My children come, my grandchildren come, and we talk. We give a bracha, we sit at the meal, we talk about the week, we talk about politics, whatever, we give a Devar Torah. It's a family mealtime, which probably has created a lot of peace in families. Amongst non-Jews, some of them have family mealtime on Sundays. You know, they have a Sunday mealtime with the same rules. It's family mealtime, family time. No cell phones, no distractions, that's what it is. Okay. Yosef used to eat with them. After Yaakov died, he stopped coming. No more family meals. And that got the brothers nervous. The Medrash says, why did he stop? He did stop. Why did he stop? He says, when my dad was alive, it was clear. Who sat at the head of the table? Yaakov. But now that Yaakov's gone, who should sit at the head of the table? I should sit, Joseph says, I'm the king. But in the family, who's the king? Yehuda. So we should have a machlokas. We should have an argument. I should make somebody feel uncomfortable. So Yosef says, you know what the best solution is? I'm just not going to show up. I'm not going to stop coming. They jump to conclusion. Joseph stopped coming. He's angry. He's plotting revenge. You know, what's going on? What's in his brain? What's happening? They could have asked him, Yosef, why are you not here? Please come back. They could have gone to him for family mealtime, you know. Then he would have said, he would have explained to them what the problem was. Maybe they would have worked out a solution. But people don't talk. People jump to conclusions, and they don't share what they feel. So one answer the Gemara gives is that he stopped coming to family mealtime. That got them nervous. Got it. The second reason is also a fascinating reason. They buried Yaakov. Now Yosef is in Israel. First time he's been back in 40, 50 years, right? You remember that he was 17 when he left. He was 22 years, and then Yaakov lived to be another 17, 22, 30, 39, almost 40 years since he was in Israel. The Gemara says that after they buried Yaakov, he didn't go right back to Egypt. he went north to Shechem, and he found the pit the brothers threw him in, and he made a bracha to Hashem, Baruch Ato Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'osa li nes b'mokum hazeh, who made a miracle for me in this place. Now you're the brothers.
And he didn't see grave of his mother?
I don't know. We don't know. I would assume
Yeah.
that he stopped in Beit Lechem. Everybody stops in Beit Lechem. Even today, people stop. I would like to say the answer to your question is, of course. If you're the brothers, what just happened? You're going to say to yourself, that kid was 17 years old, it was 40 years ago, and he remembers the city, the place, the location, 40 years later? What does that tell you? He hasn't forgotten a thing.
They knew that he went there.
Yeah, they all went together. They were all one big happy family. Imagine you're the brothers, and he goes back to the exact location where they threw him into the pit.
Yeah.
That would have spooked anybody out. It spooked them out. Not bad. It spooked them out good. Now, Yosef, of course, said to the brothers, and the brothers didn't understand either, some opinions say, why he was making this bracha. What miracle? It was just a pit. It was just a hole. No, we didn't kill you. But Yosef knew that in the pit were scorpions and snakes. So he knew how dangerous the pit was. They didn't know. They just threw him into a pit like a jail. So they were confused. Why is he coming back? Why is he making this bracha? What's this all about? And Yosef says, what do you mean what's it about? God saved my life. He said, what saved your life? You were never in danger. He says, of course I was in danger. Now from us, I said, of course not from you. From scorpions and snakes. He says, what scorpions and snakes? They played dumb. They didn't know.
After so many years, he went and he showed his appreciation, yes?
Right, but how did he remember the location? Means he never forgot.
Oh my God.
That means, if after 40 years, somebody knows exactly what you did and when you did it, that hurt them, and they still remember it like it happened yesterday, 40 years later, what does that tell you? He forgot nothing. So the brothers got nervous. The brothers got nervous.
So this bracha, he forgives them.
You know what?
Maybe.
There's a very simple way to forgive someone. You say, I forgive you. Guess what? He never said that. But it wasn't that difficult because the brothers never said to him, we are sorry, or we were wrong. It's very hard to forgive someone who doesn't ask.
Why are they not saying to him?
Why not?
They understood. They were guilty. They did.
And you know what? That's a very nice sentiment, and I hope it's true, but I know a lot of people who I've come across who, if they just could open their eyes, they would see the mistakes they made and how wrong they are, and I've yet to believe that they realize they're wrong. It's sad. It's sad. Sometimes what people do.
We're still paying for it.
What?
Jewish.
Yeah, look at what's going on in the world. Is the world getting any better in life? Is the world getting any safer? People talk about, the days of the 1950s, the 1960s, today we wish we had those days, now we have active shooter drills, schools have lockdowns. We never had any of that. We were worried about nuclear holocaust. We used to hide under our desks, as if that would have saved us. We never had metal doors, and now shuls have combination locks you can't get in, and there's guards, armed guards.
Did you see the video that in Israel, the rabbi teaching the ladies
Yes, sure.
how to use the gun?
I don't have to go to Israel. In Muncie, they're doing it now.
Yeah.
In Muncie, they had a whole thing on the news about that. So, when we had to learn it in our day, I was there during the Yom Kippur War. It was a different world. And even then, it was done with this different set of rules, a different responsibility. Listen to this story. Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss says this story. It's a good story. It's a wonderful story. I want to share it with you. There was this girl. She was in 12th grade, and she was finishing high school. Now, not that much amongst the Bukharian community, in the Bukharian schools, but in the Ashkenazi community, when a girl finishes high school, 12th grade, the year after high school, they usually go to Israel for seminary, right? And there's some wonderful seminaries. There's Yaakov Seminary, and there's Ma'or, and there's different, Darchei Bina, there's some very good seminaries. Both my girls went to seminary, my sisters went to seminary. It's a common thing. It takes their 12, after 12th grade, it just rounds it out. It's a good experience. And then when they come back, they often go to college, get jobs, or look to get married. In America, we talk about this, in the past. Girls have resumes, Ashkenazi girls, they produce resumes. Some with a picture, some without a picture. It's very important the seminary you go to. Because certain seminaries open the doors to all the yeshivas. You go to a certain seminaries, boys from Lakewood are interested, boys in Chaim Berlin are interested, boys in Torah Vodaas, boys in Ner Yisrael. And I guess certain seminaries are less attractive, more modern, so they're not so interested. So this family, their girl, the oldest, they have 3 or 4 girls, so the oldest girl applied to a particular seminary. She wanted to get into this seminary because this seminary is the best. And if you go to this seminary, when you come back, everybody wants to go out with you. You're very popular. The seminary is a hard seminary. It's academic, it's hard. And this girl, her grades were 70, 75, 80, average, no genius. Nice girl, sweet girl, but she applied to the seminary and she was turned down. She got a letter back, the family, thank you for applying. We had many, many candidates this year. It's hard to take in everybody. We're sorry to say your daughter is not accepted. Okay. The father said to his wife, he says, we got to get her into the seminary. This is going to affect her whole life. It's going to affect shidduchim, who she's going to be able to go out with, date. Who do we know who knows the principal of the seminary? Who do we know that can maybe call up and push a little and then get our daughter in? So the wife says, I really don't know anybody who knows this principal, because remember, the principal lives in Israel. But you want to hear a funny thing, that principal was my 4th grade teacher. She taught me in 4th grade. So the father said, what? She was your 4th grade teacher, you got to call her. So the mother says, no, I don't think that's such a good idea. Why not? You see, in 4th grade, I was a lousy student. I also got 70s and 80s. Our daughter takes after me in school. My husband was smart. My daughter wasn't so smart. I wasn't so smart. If I call her up, she'll remember me. That for sure she'll never take her because I wasn't a good student, and she's not such a good student. She's a nice person, but not a good student. The father said to the mother, you gotta, I don't care. We gotta get her in, call her up. So she calls up the principal and she makes an appointment and she comes down and she says, my daughter really wants to go to your seminary. So the principal was honest. She says, listen, let's say her name was Mrs. Moskowitz. Listen, Mrs. Moskowitz, your daughter didn't do well on the test. The seminary is a really rough seminary. We have really academic. It's very hard. If we took your daughter in, she'd be so frustrated. Everybody's getting A's and she's getting C's and D's, and it'll be too hard for her. She won't enjoy it. It won't be a good experience. You're trying to push her in when I'm telling you it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit. I'm not being mean. I'm not trying to be hard. I'm just being honest. The mother said, okay, I got it. I understand. By the way, you may not remember, but you were my teacher in 4th grade. She says, really? What was your maiden name? Because Moscow, she didn't recognize any Moscow. My name, Friedman. My name is Miriam Friedman. You were my teacher. And then Ahela stopped for a moment, said, you're Miriam Friedman? Your mother is Rachel Friedman? She says, yeah. We made a mistake. Your daughter is accepted in the seminary. And not only that, I can tell you now that your other girls just put down on the application form the grandchildren of Rachel Friedman. I'm accepting them all now in advance. Now, here's this mother. She was just given a no, got a letter, no, everything is no. And all of a sudden, my mother's name is Rachel Friedman. She says, what's going on? What What are you
Now she
talking
curious.
what happened here? What happened? She says, let me tell you. When I taught you in 4th grade, it was my first year teaching. And it was a new experience for me. And the principal of the school was on my case like you cannot believe. Everything I did was wrong. Every day the principal was looking in the window and listening at the door and criticizing this and criticizing that. I was so miserable, I almost quit teaching. I swore I would never teach again. One day, the principal calls me into the office. I figured, okay, that's it. She's going to fire me. That's it. I've enough. She's going to fire me. And I'm in her office, and she pulls out a letter that your mother wrote. And your mother wrote a letter that this teacher is such a wonderful teacher, and my daughter, who's not a very good student and never liked any of her teachers, loves this teacher and has made such a wonderful connection, and my daughter's having such a good year in school, all because of this teacher. You have no idea. All of a sudden I went from being the worst teacher in the school, in the eyes of the principal, to be the best teacher in the school. And now this principal is my biggest fan and my biggest friend. And my year went great. And then when a position opened in 8th grade, they promoted me from 4th grade to 8th grade. And when the principal retired, she suggested to the board that they hire me, and I became the principal. And then when I retired, I opened up the seminary. Your mother's letter changed the entire course of my life. I went from being rejected and about to quit, to being the best teacher, teacher of the year, 8th grade teacher, principal, and now I have a seminary. Of course I'm going to take your daughter into my school. I'll take every child your mother ever had into my school. Your mother changed my life. And how long did it take her to write that letter? 3 minutes? 4 minutes?
And she wrote the truth, or she just...
No, the same.
The mother.
Yeah, the mother wrote the truth. The mother wrote a letter to the principal.
And daughter liked
Just
used to
needs
like
to
it.
know.
This girl was not a very good student. Every year the teachers, she never liked any of the teachers. And the daughter used to come home and never wanted to go to school and always made trouble. And now, this year, the daughter always wants to go to school, wants to be the best in school. And when she asked, what? She said, I have this Hebrew teacher, and she's just the best. I just love her.
Good friend.
Yeah, she became a good friend. It was a true letter. I have a grandson in Yeshiva Tana. One of the secretaries there, is very nice to him. Because this grandson, he's like in 1st grade. He's so cute. It's almost impossible not to eat him up. But this, every day when you ask him who are your best friends, it's Moshe so-and-so and Reuven so-and-so, and then Mrs. so-and-so. This secretary is his best friend. Why? Because he's so cute. When he comes in, she always says hi. If he's sad, she goes over and gives him a cupcake or something to make him happy. So here's this little kid, who's 1st grade. How much can a 1st grader like school? But he loves school because of this secretary. And when I see this secretary, she says, your grandson, I could eat him up. I says, well, leave something over for me. I also want to eat him up, because he's cute. He's a cute kid.
Is your daughter son?
He's my daughter's son. He's a cute kid, and he is. And in many ways, he's special. But, there are times that my wife, has a hard day at school. She teaches pre-1A, 1st grade. They're not easy classes. And you should know it's gotten harder and harder because the kids are a little bit more chutzpahdik, I don't have to tell you. Something in the air or in the water or whatever it is. And there are days that she'll come home and she'll go upstairs she has a little office, and she'll pull out from her drawer some letters that parents have written over the years. She pulled out a letter a few days ago that someone had written her 20 years ago. Now, she doesn't have many letters. She maybe has 5 letters, 6 letters. And she's been teaching for like 40 years. So what does that tell you? We don't write letters, But there are days when she needs a good pick-me-up, and she'll read those letters, and those are pick-me-ups. I have some very nice letters in my own collection, but, it doesn't take a lot to write a letter. I wrote a letter. I was involved in a case, very difficult case, and a particular police detective was extremely helpful, a woman, not Jewish, very, very helpful. And I wrote a letter to her captain saying that it was really a pleasure to work with this person and she was fantastic. Well, I get this phone call. She's been a friend of ours for life already. She got a gold shield, she got a promotion, she got an ideal job, she got a transfer to a particular area of the police department that she wanted to be. She was on the worst detail possible, like the projects. Now she got transferred, and she credits it all for my letter. I said, my letter? How come you got all of this because you're a good detective, because you're a good officer, because you've been there for 30 years? And her answer to me was no. A letter from a rabbi to the captain of the precinct, you have no idea what that letter did. Now, how often do we write letters? There are many times that we are helped by police, fire, by different places, and we talk, we always say to ourselves, I should really write a letter. And then a day goes by, 2 days go by, and we don't write the letter. We just don't write that letter. You have no idea.
iPhone, internet.
Yeah, whatever. Text
It's
message.
so important. It's so important.
And you write a letter, you put a stamp on it. That stamp was about 30 cents. This particular detective has been helpful for the community 100 different ways. 100 different ways. Why? Because I wrote a letter. It's the strangest thing. But this kid got into seminary. Why? Because somebody wrote a letter. And that letter made all the difference in the world. It's just an amazing, amazing thing of what we can accomplish with just a letter. Okay, so many other things to talk about. I want to share with you one more thing over here. One last thing, another minute or two. I've probably told you this once before. I had seen one of these lines in one of I gave a lot of Shalom Bayis speeches, and recently they asked me one of my shiurim to talk about Shalom Bayis a little bit. I had a line in there: love is one long sweet dream. Marriage is the alarm clock. I'm sorry, guys. I had to break it to you. Anyway, listen to this. Listen to this. There was this old guy, probably in his 70s. He was cleaning out the attic. In houses, you have the third floor of the attic where they put boxes in there for 30 years. He was cleaning out the attic.
In Russian we say чердак.
Okay, there you go. Чердак?
Чердак.
Чердак.
Name, Attic name is for Russian language.
Чердак. Okay. So he goes up to the attic and there's this big box where he has in it journals. You see, women keep diaries. Men keep journals. And he used to write things down in this journal. And he sees one, and it has his name on it, Sam's journals. And then another box is Jimmy's journal. Jimmy is his son. Okay, wow, a trip through memory lane. So he pulled out his journal, and he's coming through, and he comes on a date, let's say January 10th, 1975.